Hey, welcome everyone.
Hello.
I'm Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with my friends and my daughter. Everybody want to say hi? Just say your name.
Hi, I'm Sonia.
Hi, I'm Connie.
Hi, I'm Teresa.
Yeah, so we're going to pick up from where we left. We're just on chapter 1, the meaning of miracles, and we left off with number 36. So Teresa, do you want to start?
Yes,
Okay.
36.
Yep.
Miracles are examples of right thinking, aligning your perceptions with truth as God created it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anything for you guys on that? So the interesting word for me here is right, okay, because we use right and wrong quite a bit in everyday speech and communicating. But notice that it's right thinking. So most of the time, you know, when we feel either that we were right or we were wrong, we're not even aware that we're talking about our thinking. We just say, oh, I was right, or I am wrong, or you are right and you are wrong. So we're making it personal. We're making the right and wrong as if it was a person that was right or wrong. And this is not saying that at all, because sometimes people have problems with when the Course says right perception and wrong perception. But it's only talking about thinking. And because most of us identify with our thinking, it's really hard to not think, to not believe that it's completely impersonal. So miracles are examples of right thinking because there's only two thought systems. It's a thought system of love and it's a thought system of fear. It's not ego. It's a thought system of the voice for God, or it's the thought system of the voice for the ego. And so the right thinking is the aligning your perception with truth as God created it. And if we align our perception with truth as God created it, we would not be perceiving separation. And that is a miracle because every day, what do we see with our eyes? We see separation. And that's what we experience, separation. So, so the miracle is an example that we are in our right mind, that we have selected the right teacher, that we are listening to the voice for God, and that we're choosing the thought system of God and not of the ego. And that's when our perception is aligned with what is truth as God created it. And we call that vision because it's guided by the Holy Spirit. And vision, the Course says, sees no evil. And because it sees no evil, there is no evil. So it's a perception of innocence, and it's a reflection of the holy mind. That is how God created our mind, holy, because God is holy. Okay, let's see. 37. Do you want to go, Sonia? And then Connie can go.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
37. A miracle is a correction introduced into false thinking by me. It acts as a catalyst, breaking up erroneous perception and reorganizing it properly. This places you under the atonement principle, where perception is healed. Until this has occurred, knowledge of the divine order is impossible.
Mhm. Okay, anybody, anything there?
What does the word catalyst mean again? Like just like the trigger?
A catalyst is like an activator. If you think of, for
Oh,
example, if you're cooking and you put yeast, yeast is a catalyst. It makes the dough rise.
oh, okay.
I mean, that's in the, it's an analogy.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so it's an activating agent in that it undoes, it breaks up erroneous perception. Erroneous perception is misperception, is miscreation, is false thinking. Okay. And it breaks that up. So it's the Holy Spirit undoing what is error in our thinking. So a miracle is a correction, and the Holy Spirit is the correction that God gave to us when the idea of separation was introduced. And so it is the undoing, which is of the false perception, reorganizing it properly. Because remember that a false perception is upside down. So we may believe that, for example, that love is attack. Okay, well, that's totally upside down. But people justify cruelty by saying, well, it's for your own good. I love you, something like that. And so because it does that, it corrects it. It says, no, wait a minute, those can't be the same. So it places the mind under the atonement principle where the perception is healed. And do you remember what the atonement principle is?
Recognizing that the separation never happened.
Exactly. And so it places the mind under that principle where it recognizes that separation is not true because it never happened. And that's how perception is healed. So until this has occurred, until our perception is healed, knowledge of the divine order is impossible. So that's why the Course says that on earth we heal and in heaven we create, because creation is a part of knowledge. And even though we use the word knowledge as if it was perception, information, it's not. It's not referring to the divine order, which is beyond perception or absolute truth. And perception is not absolute truth. That's why in 36 we talked about aligning perception with truth. Because remember that the Course says the first that let's see, that perception is a decision to substitute knowledge, to substitute what is not absolute truth for knowledge, which is perception. So it's a decision to perceive rather than to know. Because we wish to see what we want to see. So the loss of knowledge is a decision to believe that somehow knowledge, which is absolute, infinite, and everything, and is unconditional love, is not enough. Somehow we judge it not enough. And therefore we would rather perceive what we want to see than what is absolutely true. And that puts us into basically madness, because we're just hallucinating. We're making up fantasies or dreams of what we wish were true. So there's a lot of self-deception.
Mhm.
And the miracle corrects that. So it's a correction introduced into that false thinking by me. And the me here would be the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, or Jesus. Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for 38?
Okay.
Yeah.
38. The Holy Spirit is the mechanism of miracles. He recognizes both God's creations and your illusions. He separates the true from the false by his ability to perceive totally rather than selectively.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Anything there? Okay. So the Holy Spirit is the mechanism of miracles, and the Holy Spirit is simply our higher mind. So our connection to truth. So even though we believe we are a separate self and separate from God, there's still a part of the mind that recognizes and knows that that is not true, and it's our communication link to truth, and we call that, it's called Holy Spirit. And so it is that connection that cannot be severed. You can call it the light within. Even in darkness, you can think of someone that, Hitler, or someone that is seen in the world to be evil and cruel and all that. Life, because it comes from God, cannot be completely severed from its source, because then it would not be alive. And so let's see, it is that mind, that part of our mind, that higher mind, which is our true mind, that is the mechanism of miracles. Because the Holy Spirit, he recognizes both God's creations and your illusions. You can also use the word discernment. The Holy Spirit is that part of our mind that can discern what is not real, what is false, and what is true, what is in alignment with God, with love. And because he can recognize both, then we are able to discern and not be confused in choosing love instead of fear, because fear can be confused with love. And, we do that sometimes because we confuse safety with surviving. Let's see, we can confuse it with like a nurturing instinct, which will, fight tooth and nail to protect her young, kind of like a bear, kind of a thing. So, and so the Holy Spirit separates the true from the false by his ability to perceive totally rather than selectively. And, to perceive selectively means simply that we are misinterpreting what we see. And so we're only seeing a piece of it, or we're distorting it. So we're not getting the whole picture. And because the Holy Spirit can see totally, it's able to discern the false from the true. Sometimes you can think of tunnel vision. We get so invested in a particular outcome that we want, okay, that we fool ourselves and we don't see things that are telling us, you know, you're going the wrong way, you're going the wrong way, you're going the wrong way, you know, and until we crash, you know, and oh man, I thought this was the right way. No, it wasn't, you know, and then we have to turn around. And so that's kind of how we learn a lot of times, you know. And I mean, it would be nice if we could just learn the easy way, but I don't know. Sometimes we choose to learn the hard way, and we do until we're ready to, you know, learn the easy way. So,
Mhm.
okay, let's see, 39.
39. The miracle dissolves error because the Holy Spirit identifies error as false or unreal. This is the same as saying that by perceiving light, darkness automatically appears.
Okay, read that last word again.
Disappears.
Yeah.
This is the same as saying that by perceiving light, darkness automatically disappears.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. So what about that? Miracles solve error. Uh-huh.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Yes. So the problem is that if we're not able, and this is one of the things I realized when I was reading, I first started reading the course. In the first few chapters, it says it's very, very important to be able to tell the difference between what is false and what is unreal. And I realized, right, you know, that my mind was not able to do that. And so I really understood the importance of the discernment of being able to tell one idea that's being able to look at an idea and see if it's false or real. And you kind of need just a really basic foundation, a very straight foundation to do that. You know, true, real ideas are of God. So they're going to be in the likeness of God. They're going to be eternal. They're going to be unconditionally loving. They're going to be they're going to be true universally, no exceptions. They're going to be inclusive. Nobody's going to be left out. They're going to be infinite. So there's no scarcity at all. So any other idea that isn't like that is unreal. So, okay.
Mhm.
Do you want to do 40, Sonia?
Okay. The miracle acknowledges everyone as your brother and mine. It is a way of perceiving the universal mark of God.
Yeah. So what's it saying here?
Just acknowledging that we're not separate, that we're just one.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yes,
just
it's
one big happy family.
one. Yeah, in truth. So yeah, it is a way of perceiving the universal mark of God. It's interesting that it uses the word mark there. And so growing up Catholic, that idea of the mark shows up in, let's see, because so the belief in evil, in darkness, also uses the word mark. And when we speak about sin, it's also defined in terms of missing the mark. Yes. And so I think this is using this word in the way that it's saying, when you experience a miracle, okay, you are acknowledging everyone as the same creation, because we are all children of God. And that that acknowledgement, that recognition, that miracle is what, let's see, it's a universal mark of God, says that we are all part of God, that we are not separate from God, and we share in God's inheritance. We belong to God. Because think of it in real worldly terms. Okay, animals like to mark territory. Okay, so they're like, this is mine. So this is a way to recognize ourselves as being one with God, as being children of God, but not in a territorial way. Okay.
Well, it's interesting that you use the word belong. We belong to God.
Mm-hmm.
That almost sounds, yeah, I don't know, but it's the truth.
It is, but in today's society, the word belong has sort of a subservient, almost kind of connotation to it, because it's about possessing something.
Mm-hmm.
So if I buy a car, that car belongs to me, and I get to drive it. I get to do whatever I want with it. So it's like my toy.
My belongings.
So, yes. Yeah. So those become objects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But for God, there are no objects, because it's all mind. So in this sense, what we're saying is that we are thoughts that belong in God's mind. We belong to God's mind because God is the creator of us as holy thoughts. So in other words, our mind, what we think, those are also our thoughts, right? Okay. And so God too created, not in a physical form, but used spirit to create us. And we can think of us as thoughts of God, emanating from God, from spirit, the source of all thought, of all life.
What was that last sentence you said? We can use God to.
Well, when we're talking about our relationship to God, we're talking about mind and thoughts. Yeah, rather than objects and things.
Mm-hmm.
And so to belong to God simply acknowledges where our source is, where we come from.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we're not self-created. We did not arise as a thought by itself. We have a source, which is God. Just like our own thoughts that we made up, they didn't make themselves. We made them up. The idea of a body, the idea of the ego, the belief in separation, those are all thoughts that we made up. And then we think we are our thinking, therefore we think we are our thoughts, therefore we think we are a separate ego personality and a separate body. And that's what we think we are, but it's what we think we are. It's not what we are. So there's a disagreement there between what we think and what is the truth. But it's not really a disagreement, right? Because what is false doesn't exist. It's not real. So only what is real is true. And everything else is just made up, imaginary. And at some point, the mind recognizes that. The miracle teaches that, it acknowledges that truth, that what God created has never changed. So regardless of how we judge ourselves, what we think of ourselves, all of that can be undone because it's not true. It's only true because we believe it. Is that good, Connie? Yeah, okay. Okay, 41.
Is it my turn? I lost track.
So did I.
It's your turn, Connie.
Thank you. 41. Wholeness is the perceptual content of miracles. They thus correct or atone for the faulty perception of lack. So, perceptual content.
Yes, so miracles are going to show us in a perceptual form. Because remember that miracles are change in perception.
Okay, right.
So they correct. So maybe you are sick, maybe you have back pain. And when you recognize that self that is in pain and has back pain is not your true self, and because it's not your true self, it's not real. And therefore the back pain cannot be real either. It cannot have real effects because its cause is not real. The miracle, then the pain is gone because the mind recognizes what is true and what is false. And it shows you that that the wholeness, which is the love of God, is available to everyone. So healing demonstrates it's the perceptual content that what is operating as pain and suffering and division and conflict and fear in the world is not true, and that it can be healed. And what's left underneath that is the recognition that what is true is that there is no lack. There is no lack of health. There is no lack of love. There is no lack of life, because even life we think is limited once we identify with the body, because it recognizes we're eternal spirit. So that's why number 2 says it's a way of perceiving. Where is it? It's they thus correct or atone for the faulty perception of lack. And so, the experience of pain or the experience of, a scarcity of money, maybe I don't have money for the rent or the mortgage, or maybe I feel lonely. Maybe I feel, I don't have friends or nobody loves me, or so any of those perceptions, the miracle would correct, because it would demonstrate, it would give us the experience that is not true. And the minute that the mind sees that it's not true, that we are and we have everything because we are creations of God, and God is eternal and lacks nothing, in that recognition, in that connection with the Holy Spirit, with the higher mind, the misperception is healed. Okay. And I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden we're going to, go for a walk and we're going to find the red money, under a bush or something. Okay. But what it does mean is that if the mind is corrected and the mind no longer perceives lack and it perceives itself whole, it's going to have to see that, because the world has to conform to our thinking, because we are making up the world. It's a projection of our thinking. And therefore, something is going to show up in our lives that's going to make it possible for us to pay the rent. Maybe someone owed us money and all of a sudden we get a check in the mail. Or maybe we're going to win something, who knows? I mean, how it shows up doesn't matter. But time and time again, the miracle proves to us that the mind is causal, and that the correction in the mind has to be perceived in the world too, whether it's the body, whether it's the world, whether it's our situation, whether it's in our relationships, because it's a world of perception. Does that make sense, Connie?
Oh, yeah. It reminded me when you were talking just about open-mindedness, and keeping that mind open, like opening the roof of your car to let in fresh air, fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, instead of the same old ones we've been thinking.
Yes, and it puts us in a place of trust, because the miracle reinforces the idea that we are not alone, that we are taken care of, that God is there and providing for us one way or another, so that there's no fear. And so it reinforces, the truth, what is in alignment with the truth.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, for trust. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Versus the trust and truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can think of, remember the example with your ring? I mean, that was pretty amazing, right?
That was something else. Wow. Yeah.
You want to tell Teresa and Sonia what happened real quick? Is that something you want to share?
Well, sure. It's a little bit long, so I'll try to get to it. So let's see, not this June, but previous year, it was my birthday, and I wanted to take myself out to the coast, out by Stinson Beach. And I went out there and I parked way down away from the main entrance, like more in the residential areas. And I parked off on the dirt side road. And before I was getting out of the car, I took all my rings off and put sunscreen on my hands, and went off to the beach. And later that day, when I came home, I noticed I did not have my wedding rings. And I was like, oh shit, they're somewhere on the beach. They're gone. They're gone. So I came home and I didn't tell my husband it's my birthday. He was taking me out for dinner and I was so preoccupied. I tore apart my car, I don't know how many times, and just la, 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 la. Finally, a friend of mine said, well, I'd go back out there and look for it. And so I finally did tell Chris, my husband, and he said, is there somewhere you could go maybe out there and put some flyers up? And I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, so I a couple days later, I did call, and I started with a bakery out there, and I asked if they had a bulletin board and that I'd lost my wedding ring. And she was just so kind and so sweet. And she goes, "No, we don't, but you might check over with the library." I called the library. "No, we don't have a bulletin board," and blah, blah, blah. You might try the fire department." And so I thought, oh, forget it. Fire department, what the heck? So later on, I decided, okay, I called the fire department, and I said, "I know this is complete waste of time, wackadoodle, but I've lost my wedding rings, and I'm wondering if you have any kind of a bulletin board or blah, blah, blah." And he said, "No, but you know what? Someone did turn in a wedding ring, and mine's in two pieces. Someone did turn in a wedding ring, and I know nothing about it. I haven't seen it. Let me see what I can find out, and I'll get back to you." So he did call me later that day and gave me a lady's name and phone number. And I called her and I described it. And she said that she described the ring. And I said, "Oh, just one?" So I was kind of disappointed. I thought, oh, she didn't find the whole thing. I was like, I'd rather have, the whole thing than just a part of it. So she was so excited. I mean, she was like beside herself about it, because she had been on a walk on this dusty, dirty road and found it in the dirt. And so I thought, okay, well, so I arranged to go pick it up. And then Chris said, "Why don't you go back out there and see if you can find the rest of it?" This is the funny part. Sorry, it is kind of long, but it truly, so he said, I said, "What am I going to do? I don't even remember where I parked." It was this whole big, long dirt road, and I couldn't remember where I parked. And he said, "You could take out a rake." So I went out there and I parked on the dirt road, and I just started raking along the whole side of the road there. And I kept saying to myself the whole time, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I was out there quite a while. People were going by, "Oh, are you doing volunteer work cleaning up?" No, it's not what I wanted to be doing. And anyway, so I was out there quite a while. It was getting cold. I had to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, So I'm just scraping. And right when I'm getting ready to leave, I saw this speck. I'm telling you, it was a speck of shiny something. And I took the rake and I just flipped it up, and there was the other piece of my ring. And in that moment, I totally felt like I did not do that. That was like, boom. It was like one of the you see in a movie. I was completely, yeah. Anyway, it was a complete miracle. And yeah, because I wasn't expecting to find that. But Chris said, "I knew you'd find it." Anyway, he had faith. I did not. So maybe his faith kept it going. But
Yes.
I was like,
Yes.
oh.
Yeah.
And the woman wrote me a card. She has two homes, one in San Francisco, one out at Simpson Beach, and said, "That was the best thing that's happened during this whole COVID thing." And then the fire department was just blown away because I let them know. And then where I went to pick it up, the guy where I picked up my ring, he said, "Man, his idea was, I'd go straight to the casino and gamble with." Anyway, I'm sorry it was a long story, but the second piece I found, it was a little banged up, but I took it in, got it repaired. It was very inexpensive, and it was like, wow, every time I look at that, I'm like, man, that was really something. I just thought that thing was out on the beach somewhere. So when I got out of the car, they were on my lap, when I put the lotion on my hands. So don't do that. And so I got up and out and they scattered. Yeah.
That's
Anyway.
right, Connie. But was that an error? Or do you think it was an error?
I do not. I think it's about helping me to trust.
Mhm.
That's what I got from that, because trust has been a pretty big thing. And that, I mean, to have something so obscure and out of the realm of possibility to me, just wow. And that was in a matter, several days. So the rings were sitting there for several days, and in their various little positions waiting to be found.
Yeah, it's a wonderful analogy for what we're doing here with A Course in Miracles. We're looking at each error to look for the gold in the dirt, in the garbage, because we've buried them. We've buried them. Now we have to go dig them up.
The other thing that was so helpful for me was the kindness of everybody along the way, and how each person was so helpful and really caring and wanting to help, and talk to this person or talk to that person. And that was really big for me, because just trusting the goodness of people's hearts, that I think was even more profound than actually getting the wedding rings back.
Yeah, and it was a miracle for everyone involved in a lot of ways, So it's mhm.
They all have a little piece of it and remember it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for breaking it down a little bit more and helping me to see all the gifts there.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can never doubt. How can I doubt?
Yeah. So let's see.
Thank you for listening to my story.
Yeah, that's a really good example of that. So thank you.
Okay, I think we're on 42.
I think it's my turn.
Okay.
A major contribution of miracles is their strength in releasing you from your false sense of isolation, deprivation, and lack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just think of Connie's example there, because that was about isolation, deprivation, and lack, right? And
feeling so alone in the problem, and just forget about it. Yeah.
Yes, and you were deprived of, something you valued and you treasured, and you were lacking it. So the isolation, also for the lady that helped you find it, that was so there was a big connection there. You see, you got to realize how love is just one, and it takes us out of our isolated self of the ego, the body. Yeah. Who, once we identify with the ego and the body, we're going to be feeling deprived, lacking, and isolated. Because how else are we going to believe we're an individual, separate self? Okay, 43. I don't remember who's going.
Sonia.
Okay. Miracles arise from a miraculous state of mind or a state of miracle readiness.
Yeah. So the miracle readiness is what Connie had been talking about, which is that open-mindedness to receive. Because if we're not open-minded, we're going to be closed to the awareness of miracles. And the Course says that miracles are normal and everyday. And most of us don't see it that way. I mean, the majority of us think that they are like rare, you know. Definitely not normal, but a spectacle, you know. But no, they're normal and everyday, but the mind has to be purified. And that's the miracle readiness. And it means the purification means that you, one, are not, believing you are unworthy of it. Okay. Because if you believe you're unworthy of it, that you're, guilty, that you're a sinner, you don't deserve good things, that's going to close your mind to the awareness of the miracle. It's not that miracles aren't available to you. Miracles are available to everyone as a creation of love. It's that the mind closes itself to receiving them. That's why they arise from a miraculous state of mind.
And it's not just about finding things. Well, how would you say that? I mean, you're just wanting to keep an open mind so that you can change your mind.
Yes, it's about not protecting your thought system. And then the Holy Spirit sees that as the little willingness. And and then it can work through us to bring forth the miracle. No, it can be, healing. It can be healing of illness, of relationships, of situations, of problems. Basically, any problem that the mind makes up can be undone.
I'm glad you brought up that a little willingness, because at class the other night, we were talking about that quite extensively. And that has really stuck with me. And I have found so many times during the day when I'm hesitant about something that is popping into my mind now readily. And I'm like so grateful. Just have a little willingness, to shift or, to do what I didn't really want to do. Just, that it's that little push that's really been helpful. Just want to put that out there.
There you go. Yeah.
Make a post-it. Have a little willingness.
Yes, and then you'll be able to see the miracle. Okay, number 44.
The miracle, I think it's me. Gosh.
Yes.
The miracle is an expression of an inner awareness of Christ and the acceptance of his atonement.
Yeah, so remember that the word Christ here means what? The one mind, Christ's one mind. So it's the oneness, it's the recognition that we're all one. Okay. And so the miracle is that expression of that inner awareness of Christ. And Connie kind of expressed it by saying that, everyone that was involved in helping her get to this ring was expressing all this love. And so that's an experience that the Course calls a holy instant, of seeing the oneness in love of everyone, that there are no separate interests, that the interest is the same for everyone, that we're all loving creations of God, and that's our true nature, that we're expressing our true nature, because we're in spirit. We are in alignment with spirit. And that's the acceptance of his atonement, which is the acceptance of the truth that the Holy Spirit brings to us, that the separation never happened. And, you know, at a high, you could also generalize it and say that when you have, you know, experience after experience of a miracle, you begin to see that everything, without exception, in the world has a purpose for good, that there is something there that is good, if we just are able to let's see, if we're able to learn the lesson that's there, if we're open-minded and we have that little willingness to really look at it and see what the lesson is, there's always an insight and there's always an awareness there, which is going to be the miracle that tells us what we truly are, that we are still as God created us, and that we have not left our source, and that we are loved. And that's why the miracle leaves us with so much gratitude, feeling blessed, and feeling whole, and in a position of wanting to share and wanting to give, and, you know, pass on the love, share the love. Yeah. Okay. 45.
45. A miracle is never lost. It may touch many people you have not even met and produce undreamed of changes in situations of which you are not even aware.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you were just saying, something happens and that action makes me feel great. So I make someone else feel great, and they make someone else feel great. So it just keeps moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it expands and expands, because unconditional love has no limits. And that's sharing. That's creation.
Yeah, and I really try when I'm out and about to, you know, a lot of people have their heads down and are just really, at least in stores and things like that. But I try to, you know, just say something nice or compliment. Oh, I like your mask, or oh, that's a beautiful top, whatever, just to some sort of acknowledgement to, yeah, because I don't want to be like that and just keep my head down and be so fearful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Being, yeah.
Yes, and if you can be, you know, if you can just be free of fear, you're also going to be bringing that to them, because even if you don't say anything.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and hopefully they will pass that on to someone else, is my hope. But we don't know where that's going to go. Like if I say, oh, what a beautiful mask, who knows where that's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
and to whom, and what energy will come from that.
Yes, we don't know. We don't know what just a smile to a stranger, you know, will do. Just yeah, because we don't know where people are at, and in that moment, like you said, if you are present with them and you acknowledge them and you see them, that's kind of like a miracle in itself, you know. If they're feeling isolated and alone, you know, and scared, that's, yeah.
Especially with a homeless person. I mean, just a simple acknowledgement. Hey, how you doing today? And a lot of times they have really friendly responses. It's like,
they do.
yeah, it's like, wow. And it feels so good to just connect.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I know sometimes I've given them something and they're, they light up and they're like, God bless you. And I'm like, thank you. I feel like you gave to me. I feel like I came here and I was the homeless one.
Right. Well, the giving and receiving.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Boy,
So
we so need that more than ever.
yes, we do. Mhm. Okay, so let's see, 46.
That would be
That's
you,
Sonia.
Sonia.
Okay. The Holy Spirit is the highest communication medium. Miracles do not involve this type of communication because they are temporary communication devices. When you return to your original form of communication with God by direct revelation, the need for miracles is over.
Okay. It's just distinguishing, right? It's saying that the reason why we need miracles and the reason why this is a course in miracles, okay, is because miracles remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so the miracle is a temporary communication device that is a little bit like, let's see, when the problem is undone, when we receive the miracle, what we receive is this temporary communication of love. So we become aware of that love, okay? But maybe 3 minutes later, you're like, oh man, you're back into the ego, okay? So that's why it's a temporary communication device, because we still need miracles to finally accept the truth of what we are. We keep forgetting what we are. So we have to keep working on healing the minds, because it's a remembering of what we are in truth. And when we remember what we are in truth and we don't forget it, then that's the return to our original form of communication, which is the Holy Spirit, the highest communication medium. And it would be direct revelation. So what I'm understanding there is that the Holy Spirit is a link between God, because we think God is separate from us, and us, okay? But once the miracles, once the mind is healed through miracles, that mind sees that it is the higher mind. It recognizes there is no lower mind. The ego mind is not real. The body's not real. The world's not real. So it is the Holy Spirit, which is God's answer. And therefore, it is in direct communication with God, because now the Holy Spirit is not going to be the middle person. You say, now it's just going to be here. So the mind recognizes it's one with God. It is God. And that's why it's direct revelation, and the need for miracles is over, because the mind has healed completely. It's not going back and forth between, oh, I'm an ego, I'm a body. Oh, no. Here's the miracle. I'm a blessed holy son of God. So
really, you could say that the miracle switches the identification with the false self to the true self, right? Just every time that expression of love, which is a miracle, which is forgiveness, it's just kind of, removing the blocks. Yeah.
That's right. So the mind is the decision maker, and we can decide for God or we can decide for the ego. And once our decision is, what's the word? Permanent, solely, once we decide only for God, which is the Christ mind. This is what Jesus Christ, did for us. That's why we call him the savior of the world. Then yeah, we're not going to need that the miracle. It's going to be direct revelation. But this is a Course in Miracles, so it is about healing the mind on earth. So okay. 47.
Okay. The miracle is a learning device that lessens the need for time. It establishes an out-of-pattern time interval, not under the usual laws of time. In this sense, it is timeless.
Mhm. Okay, so what do you guys, anything there?
Just remembering Santana's comment, there is no time, no gravity.
Yes.
On national TV, CNN.
So yes, so the miracle is a learning device and it lessens the need for time. So what it's saying is that time is a need. Okay. And it's a place where we come to suffer. So we have a need for suffering. And the miracle is a learning device that helps us let go of that need for suffering. And therefore it lessens the need for being in time as a character that's an ego or a body that seems to experience pain, suffering, and death. And so each time that we experience a miracle, it takes us out of time. It's an interval that takes us out of time. It's an out of pattern time interval. So it takes us out of our usual unconscious, conditioned behavioral doing and patterns that typically govern our everyday lives. And so, and because it takes us out of time, it's not subject to the loss of time. And so in this sense, it is not, it establishes that what we are is beyond the authority of the world of time. And so it's an experience of timelessness. Okay, let's see, 48.
48. The miracle is the only device at your immediate disposal for controlling time. Only revelation transcends it, having nothing to do with time at all.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. The word of controlling time, right? I mean, who doesn't suffer in the world, right? And who doesn't want to have control of what happens in time? Because most of us tried to control the world and our environment and the people around us, and even our own impulses, in an effort to ease our suffering and make ourselves comfortable. And yet, with all that effort, we fail to end disease. We invest so much time and energy and money, and we still haven't eradicated illness. We still haven't eradicated poverty. We still haven't eradicated homelessness. So the miracle is the only device that at our immediate disposal for controlling time. And what that means is that it's a time-saving device, which means that we are more motivated to heal the mind so that we can let go of the identity with being in time as an ego body that suffers and dies. And so if we shorten time, we're shortening our suffering. Because, time is not all suffering. There's pleasure and there's moments, but you pay for it. So, yeah. And then revelation, of course, is beyond all time. Because at that point, the mind recognizes that time is not even real. It's not there.
I have a small example. I've been catching myself more, just needing to be in the present moment then, because the suffering is all these past little dreams. I notice myself, I can make myself really sad when I start thinking about our cats.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, wow, I can just really go there. But then I'm at least catching myself now and like, whew, that is just a thought in the mind and coming back to the moment. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that too. I remember that with my mother when she passed, and I really hadn't gone into the sadness and that until they were putting the casket in the ground. And I was looking at her pictures, and all of a sudden my mind went to the past, and I started thinking about all these memories I had with her. And then I started feeling all this sadness. Yeah, and I realized, oh, okay, well, those memories are not my mother, you see, because what I was missing, what the sadness was coming from was the idea that those memories were somehow my mother, and I wasn't going to have memories like that anymore with her. Yeah, but I realized, okay, well, that's not my mother. My mother is eternal. And so I haven't lost her. I have love for her. I know she loves me. And that love doesn't change just because her body is not where I can, sense her with my body senses. And yeah, the sadness didn't last. It just, yeah.
Come back to the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, we seem to, I know my mother, she just lived in memories. Everything was about memories. And I think that's quite common with older people, when there's nothing, older who are not in great health, they just start reflecting on the past because there's nothing for them, they think, to look forward to.
Yes. But my mother had Alzheimer's. So, with what you just said, you could almost say that maybe for some people, the past memories are so painful that it's better for them to not remember them
Yeah.
and to sever the connection in the brain that would bring up all those memories.
So what would she talk about?
Well, I mean, earlier on, she did talk about, it wasn't like she was talking about it. It was like they were there, her father and her mother, and, like the children when we were little, her children when we were little. So she would remember, she was able to hold on to the past more. But in the late stages, they don't have access to those memories anymore. I mean, they don't really have access to, well, they can't even vocalize. Even if they do, they're not able to vocalize it. So, the cognitive, all of that is really deteriorated. Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's sort of a, what's the word? In a way, it's a way to forget, but the problem is you sever you want to forget the pain, but you're severing both the connections to the good times and the bad times, not just the good times. They all go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, 49.
Whose turn is it?
Sonia.
Oh, it's mine. Oh.
Sorry. Go ahead. Teresa's keeping track.
I know, I always forget.
Okay.
49. The miracle makes no distinction among degrees of misperception. It is a device for perception correction, effective quite apart from either the degree or the direction of the error. This is its true indiscriminateness.
Okay, anything there? So the first one is saying that the degree of the misperception doesn't matter. Okay, so, the misperception could be just like a little white lie, or it could be this humongous fantasy story made up. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, because the miracle sees the misperception as a misperception. It doesn't rank like we do here, degree of difficulty or degree of error, like we do in school, right? How many did you get wrong? Okay, well, that's going to be your rank. Okay, it doesn't do that. And it's a device because it's correcting perception, effective quite apart from either the degree. Okay, so whether you got an F or you got a B plus, okay, the correction is going to correct all the perception. It's still a misperception, even if you missed only one and got a B plus and instead of 10, and also the direction of the error. And that what that means is that sometimes we look at errors as either positive or negative, like maybe gain or loss. We tend to look at a problem like, oh, well, that's really bad for, for you, but I benefit from it. Or, and so the miracle, or, you think, well, that's too bad, you had to look bad, but so-and-so got to look good, So the miracle is not interested in only correcting what we think are negative things that we don't like. It's also going to correct the positive things that we like because they come in pairs. It's dualistic. And that's why it's so hard to accept the correction, because sometimes, for example, in illness, the person is actually getting some benefits from it. And you really have to look at that if you're sick. Okay, you have to look at the problem and you have to really be honest so that you can let go, not just the discomfort and the physical pain, but you are also able to let go what comes with that. Maybe your husband is paying more attention to you. You know, maybe he's treating you more kindly. Maybe, you know, your kids are doing all the housework now and you don't have to do anything. I mean, you have to look at the benefits that you're deriving from your situation and be able to be ready to let go of all the benefits, not just, you know, the distress and the suffering. Yes, because the miracle looks at it indiscriminately. And so, and one of the most difficult things to let go of is the specialness. We're ready to let go of feeling humiliated, but how about special? That's a little harder.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else there?
So yeah, I mean, that was a little bit confusing for me. I mean, thinking that it corrects the good too. So I understand your example, especially about the health, if there is some sort of benefit in getting from it. But
Yes. So when we look at good, okay, we can look at good either through false perception or through true perception. So when you look at good, remember that if it's true perception, it's going to be universally good for everyone. So the minute that you look at something and it's only good for one country, but it's bad for another, or it's only good for, you know, one neighborhood, but it's bad for another, or it's good for one classroom in a school, but it's bad for another, or it's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
specialness.
That's false perception.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because
okay,
we're not seeing the whole picture.
yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so 50.
Woohoo!
Oh my goodness, that's the last one, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Oh,
more
that's
miracle.
yes.
I
Okay, who wants to do that one? Let's see.
think it's Sonia.
Is
No.
Actually, you, Connie.
Oh my goodness. Okay. The miracle compares what you have made with creation, accepting what is in accord with it as true, and rejecting what is out of accord as false. Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So the miracle can only create.
So the miracle helps the mind to see, to discern what is in accordance with what is true creation and what is miscreation, so that it can reject what is false and miscreative. So let's see. So the miracle helps the mind, the decision-making mind, to value and what's the word? Invest in what is in accordance with what is true. So beliefs that are in accordance with what is true are going to be beliefs that are loving, that, you know, are that don't exclude, that are let's see, that are not coming from fear. So fear is always easy to recognize, and so you can tell that anything that comes along with that is going to be false. So any idea that promotes fear, division, conflict, separation is not going to be in accord with what is true. And when the mind is able to compare that and see that the difference and see the difference, so it can choose to not buy into those ideas, then it is in alignment with creation, with our true creative power. And the miracle helps us to do that. It helps us, the mind, to begin to recognize which ideas to just disregard and not buy into. It's, you know, you can think of it like people that meditate, for example, they can observe their ideas and they can begin to disidentify with them. And once they disidentify with them and just observe them, they're not giving them attention, and therefore the ideas are not, let's see, the ideas are not going to be given power. Okay, because any idea that we buy into, that we give value to, that we identify with, we're going to give creative power to. And if they are fearful ideas, we're going to be miscreating fearful things in our life, experiences that are, you know, full of conflict and disaster and all of that, sickness, because it's reflecting a mind that is confused and is sick about what it is, and it's not seeing clearly what is true. And once the mind is miracle minded, it can reject what is out of accord as false because it recognizes it like that. And it doesn't even allow it into the mind to be given consideration. You can almost think about how the Course says that in the beginning, the tiny mad idea rose and was taken seriously. We forgot to laugh. Well, we do that with these false ideas because we don't recognize them that they're false. So we take them seriously. We give them attention and we give them power. We give them belief. We give them value. And we act on them because of that. And then we have experiences that are nightmares rather than happy dreams.
Could you define happy dreams?
Yes, it's true perception.
Okay.
So yes, and it's a decision to be wrong rather than choose to be right and unhappy. So in other words, and by being wrong, what I mean is that it's a decision to look at the error in our mind, to go within and look at the error with the purpose and intent to correct it with the Holy Spirit. And so the mind heals. And a healed mind is a happy mind. And a happy mind reflects happy experiences in the world.
Happy mind, happy experiences rather
Yes.
than
Yeah.
wife, happy husband.
Yeah. I mean,
Whatever that is.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that, you know, the you know, COVID's going to be over like that. But if enough people, you know, would decide for the Holy Spirit rather than fear, for love, yeah, the whole country could heal. But you know, it's one person at a time. So because we believe we're separate minds, so we have to start one person at a time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Boy.
Mhm. So, okay. So actually, this was really good timing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Okay. So anything more on that, or are we ready to stop?
I think that's
I
good.
just like that little, a happy mind, a happy life. I mean, it's so simple, but
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
miracle can remind me of, yes, that just change my mind. I have a happy mind. I'm sorry, it just sounds so simple, but it's so powerful.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. And remember that inner peace is healing.
Absolutely. God.
Yeah. And a healed mind is a happy mind. So we have to do we have to work on the inner peace, and the forgiveness is the main piece in the inner peace. Because without the forgiveness, you know, there's fear and there's conflict. And definitely there's no happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, sometimes people confuse happiness with temporary excitement or glee, or, you know, even vengeance. You know, getting your revenge can seem for people to be happy. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
True.
they, you know, they got what they deserve. I'm happy, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. But, you know, it doesn't last. So we're not talking about a happiness that's just momentary. And, you
Mhm.
know, it's a state of mind, a happy mind, because it knows the truth about itself. Okay. Okay. So is that, shall we call it a day today?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. And
Thank
until
you.
next time.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Good to
thank
see you.
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. All
Take
right.
care,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.